Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being on. Good to see everyone. We're going to talk tonight mostly with Brian. Brian's going to help. I'm going to ask all kinds of questions and he's just going to answer them for us. So you're going to get to pick his brain. We want you guys to ask questions. Nutrition probably has the most questions and we're not sure how many answers sometimes.
Sometimes I don't even have it, as you know.
So we're going to try to get into some of this, but just remember there are so many fads that have been out there, and the fact is getting back to the basics and looking at what our bodies were built to eat is going to be key. So we're going to try to give you some basic things to kind of work around and work through. With chiropractic patients, a lot of patients come in with muscle and ligament issues and disc issues, bone issues. You know, what you eat is going to matter a lot to how those are going to repair. We are currently carry a product that's one of those peptides. That's kind of one of the newest fad things. It's a peptide you take by orally, you don't inject it. But what do you say about that? If you take the peptide, that's good, but you also need what with it?
You need the other nutrients, the building blocks.
No.
Yes.
So you might stimulate the body to try to repair or regenerate new tissue,
right.
But if you don't have the building blocks.
Right. And there's two things actually that are with this. And they actually just passed some legislation down in Washington, D.C. back in July that actually maybe bring these to the mainstream. We'll see what happens with that. But what happens is there's two things that can happen, because there's even some studies that say women over 50 are having issues with this that are perimenopausal and postmenopausal and that because of mitochondrial function. So there's two things we have to take into consideration. One, you have the building blocks, because it's kind of like for those of us that are older, with the old school typewriters, as the ribbon would come across and the letters are popping up on the page. So imagine you're trying to make that word. Imagine there's these little gaps in there, because imagine that ribbon didn't fully process. That's what happens when with a peptide doesn't have the nutrients. So say you need vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, and so forth. If that peptide's trying to do the job and those nutrients aren't available, the peptide can't complete it. Okay, so in other words, there's going to be this gap there. And then how do I fill in that gap? So it's trying to do that for you, but if the nutrients aren't there, then it doesn't work. The other half of that now, and I know because I've been looking into this since since now I know the legislation's passed, is that sometimes it's mitochondrial function then. We know that's the powerhouse of the cell, the main organelle. We have about 290 million of them in the body, and if they're not functioning properly, the peptide doesn't. Sometimes people get, we'll say, flash in the pan results with the peptides, and that can be another reason why they don't work or they stop working.
I think we should touch on a little bit about that mitochondrial function, because ultimately, your mitochondria can be affected by a lot of different things.
Correct.
But they're that powerhouse of your cell. They're what's going to get your body, moving in the right direction. Exactly. So some of the things we can look at, and especially as fall's coming, is that you do have less vitamin D out there. There's less sun. Not that we feel most people even get enough sun anyway, but even if you did in the summer, now the fall you have less. So vitamin D is a big thing. Most people start to move a little less. We kind of use some excuses, maybe that it gets cold and we don't go outside as much. We like to cozy up near the fire, whatever those is. So we move less. So movement, very important for the mitochondria. Vitamin D is very important. It's a pro-hormone for about anything. This is something that is statistically there's more, especially fall into the season of Christmas and times, more casseroles and baking and tailgates and holidays. So we talk about poor diet. The fact is that we could have a lot of calories but not a lot of nutrition, and that I think is what we're talking about here. So the weight gain can definitely be real. So just know that if we're trying to look at how do I manage some of the temptations that I'll have, is probably 5 days out of the 7 in a week, we're doing something that's the program we're going to talk about, versus 5 out of the 7 not caring, and then 2 days say I'm going to really try hard until I'm frustrated, and then I go back to the other 5. So you got to set yourself goals. But even just not even a pound of weight is something that can very much affect a lot of people. So if an average weight is at least a pound, but the fact is that this starts to pile on and doesn't come off.
Right.
And even 10 pounds on someone extra can affect their back. I know that statistically. So these are the things we were talking about that. We talk a lot about inflammation. There's definitely acute inflammation, but there's also chronic inflammation, which comes from our genes, but a lot of it can come from things we have in our diet, and our stress involved with those things. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe just foods that cause inflammation? What's processed foods? If you're trying to help someone step from one plate where their far end of eating really clean, they're eating dirty, so to speak, what are some of the things you start to tell them to try to take out?
I know we talked a little bit about this before, but the big things, we want to stay away from foods that are genetically modified. That's the big takeaway. And how do you tell that in the grocery store? Is it, say for instance, I'm going to make up a code, I don't know what it is, but you're going to go to your local grocery store and you want to look at a banana versus an organic banana. Okay, and so you're going to see a code on there that says, say, 4011. I don't know what the code is, I'm making it up as I mentioned, okay? So that tells you that it starts with a 4. It's a 4-digit code that starts with a 4. That means it's conventionally grown, okay? Nobody cared about it, okay? It's just, it's a Dole made it, whoever, whatever, and it's just a banana, okay? Now, what happens is that, say it's an organic banana. It'll be a 5-digit code, and that 5-digit code will start with the number 9. So they'll say 94011. That tells us then that the food has been organic. Somebody actually took the time to take care of it, not spray any pesticides or anything else like that on it. The problem we run into now, especially with where these inflammatory foods are, because your body doesn't know what to do with genetically modified stuff. It's been modified for what reason? What did they typically add to it? Typically glycophosphate, Roundup. So when these companies, and matter of fact, even Tyson Chicken got around this. I'll explain that one in a second. So what happened is these companies are putting the glycophosphate right into the seed. So nobody wants to eat watermelons with seeds, right? They all want seedless. That is a genetically modified food.
Has to be.
It is. No, it is.
Because the watermelon can't produce itself.
Exactly. So this, if we want to ponder the question, how far down the rabbit hole we want to go, Alice, what happens if we don't have any plants that have seeds anymore?
I guess we need a bunch of genetically modified seeds.
Yeah, and we're eating a bunch of genetically modified foods. Well, then what happens to us? Okay, so that's why I'm always eating the things that have seeds, like the seedless cucumbers. I don't get those anymore. I get the ones with the seeds. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Okay, who cares? I'm still eating them anyway. Don't care. Like, for instance, tomatoes. Tomatoes are a big one. And a lot of times you see the code starts with an 8. That's how you look at the genetically modified foods. So if the code starts with an 8, so if we go back to our banana example, say it says 8011, that tells us that it has been genetically modified.
Okay.
Okay. So, but as far as ultra-processed foods, I make this really, really simple. And for anybody on the call this evening or at the workshop this evening, I've gone over this before, is that I always use the comparison, make it really simple. How many wrappers do you have to go through to get to it? In a cereal box, you have the box and you have the wrapper.
Right.
Okay. Technically, it came in a corrugated box before they put it on the shelf, but as consumers, we buy 2. Okay. Then when you turn that box over, you take a look at the side. It has all this list of ingredients that's on there. Okay. Well, what happens if I go buy an apple? How many wrappers does an apple have? None. Maybe it came in a bag with 5 or 6 of its friends or whatever it is, but it still doesn't have a wrapper. They just put a bunch of them together to sell you a bunch of them rather than sell you one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where's the nutrition label for the apple? There isn't one, because the apple's the ingredients. So if I can eat things that don't have a wrapper and are single ingredient foods, apple, orange, tomato, celery, cucumber, asparagus, kale, whatever it might be, I'm probably eating pretty clean.
So here's some of the basic things that you'll want to start to see in your diet. Number 1 would start with fiber. Dietary fiber, even fiber that's undigestible, as well as it is digestible, helps so many factors, definitely your gut, blood sugar, and being full. The sad thing is medically, I know so many people are having challenges, and there's usually more fiber, but what do they give usually? Metamucil.
Psyllium husks, right?
Yeah, and it's honestly processed, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's just a processed type of fiber.
Yeah.
You're going to get more from vegetables and fruits than you are going to be a bran muffin, which is what they used to try to teach you.
Right.
So fiber's huge.
Phytochemicals with that you're mentioning.
Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
Right. All the benefits of the vitamins and minerals
Correct.
to try to fill in those gaps we talked about.
Right.
That if you're taking these peptides, these miracle drugs, but if you don't have those nutrients, you're not getting them in your diet, you're not going to be able to fill the gaps, and that's a big thing. So these are some of the things that you want to make sure that you're looking for. And why do you want these things?
Well,
because of that.
Let's watch number 2 though, because for anybody on the call, like I said, has worked with me, knows with this. Bananas are a great source for number 2. A lot of people go to.
Right, that's true.
But 1 banana is 2 servings of fruit. So banana can spike your blood sugar. So we watch those. The other green fuzzy fruit is actually a lot better for you.
Yes.
And that's a kiwi. So
with magnesium too.
correct. Even more vitamin C too.
We're looking at a lot of these things here. Just when you're trying to look at your plate, definitely the more vegetables and you have on the plate, the better. There should definitely be some protein on there. You're usually at a quarter protein. I don't know, do you follow like a quarter of your plate, I guess, like a fist size
exactly.
usually?
Fist size, deck of cards, depending upon the individual on that, sure.
And there's definitely I think people on different activity levels could use more or less carbs.
Sure,
maybe we could dig into just the keto thing a little bit, or even the, what am I thinking? The carnivore thing.
Oh yeah.
Because these are kind of fat things. What do you see like long term? I think some of those people will need the variety eventually. Would you agree with that?
That goes back to, you nailed it exactly on the head, the fad diet. They actually haven't done, there's not enough studies, not enough information on all this stuff, is that your body can't sustain or maintain that. What happens, what I have seen with keto, because they're eating a lot of high fat, which is fine. The game they're playing is leptin and ghrelin. That's what the GLP-1s, the Ozempics and things like that do. Okay, so they're increasing leptin, decreasing ghrelin. Okay, leptin is I'm full, I'm satiated. Ghrelin is girl, I'm hungry, feed me. Okay, so that's the game they're playing. The fiber that you just talked about a moment ago, that's what that does. It increases the leptin. It actually slows down all of this. It works kind of in the same way. All right, but we're getting it from a natural
So
way.
if you don't want to inject yourself with maybe a lot of side effects that are very nasty,
Fiber.
just eat some fiber.
Right. So now, as far as the ketogenic diet, what happens is, what I have seen is it starts to overwhelm the gallbladder over time. So once again, something to not be sustained or maintained. So somebody's been on it. I know I've had people come to me, especially back home at my clinic. Oh, I've been on this for 2 years, and I'm like, yeah, and you plateaued probably about 9 months in or so. Yeah, but it just works for me. That's fine. But these other organs and systems and glands have compensated for it. Now they can't do the job anymore, or they're lacking because you're not getting some stuff to get the liver produce the bile, or you're not getting enough stuff to move the bile along, or whatever it is. So that's where bitters come into play, or something of that nature. Eating sunflower seeds. Well, I can't eat those. They're not part of my diet. Well, you need to, because that's what's carnivore. So it's simple things like that. So I've always subscribed to the fact that everything goes in season, just like what we're talking here today.
Right.
So if you want to do this, fine. Do it for 6 to 9 months. See what happens. The worst thing that happens, okay, you went carnivore. Okay, carnivore, that's a whole other bottle of wax. It does, like the guy who I like and I follow, that when I'm not gonna say he made it mainstream, but I definitely know brought a lot of attention to, was Jordan Peterson. Okay. Now, unfortunately, he did have some health problems, and they say he's coming back, though he's rebounding from it. But his daughter went carnivore, and she killed up all her health problems. He went carnivore, and it cleared up a lot of things for him too. There are other people in the industry that have done it, but those are two people that I really follow. I've actually seen Jordan twice live in person. That's how much I love him. Okay. But so carnivore, once again, not to be maintained or sustained for a long period of time. You can't make it your lifestyle for the rest of your life, because there's certain. How are you going to get vitamin D then? How are you going to get the fiber? How are you going to get some of these other things that the body is necessary, like essential fatty acids? They're called essential for a reason. We talked about for your brain, right? Yeah. So if you don't have them, where else are you going to get them from? No. You got to get them from your diet. So if I know I need fiber and all I'm eating is a steak every day, or beef 3 times a day, where are you going to get the other nutrients?
I think you need to keep your food moving in different ways. I think it's a great time when you talk about fall. There's certain things that are more accessible. The spring, changing it during the seasons and changing those, I think, is a huge benefit that you don't even realize, because you need to mix things up. Exactly. I mean, the more stale we get, like if it was just carnivore, it just doesn't make any sense. Right. There's so much variety that we need, but knowing how and when to change it, that's why you hire someone like Brian, so that you can help through that. We could definitely all get stale in just doing the same thing, but even if we are trying to change it, to be able to read the signs your body's giving you might not be able to. That's why we have Brian here. That's why we have a naturopath, so he can read the signs that your body's telling you. Because your body is telling you, hey, I might need some help, no matter what those things might be. If it's a weight gain or indigestion, or you're not sleeping well, or your joints are aching stiff, whatever it might be, all these things are signs, and your diet has a big role in that. But knowing where to focus, because if you could go online today, read one thing, and then tomorrow read a totally different thing, and get very confused, and that paralysis by analysis is no good. We want you moving. We want you in motion to make changes. Yep. And if you just let the next person try to sell you the next thing, this is going to lead you to just being depressed. But eating what is in season, eating those things that become more accessible, that in the right times, is going to help that microbiome a huge amount. These are a lot of things that you would find in season that are great, and if you have a 9 in front of their number, eat those ones. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And it takes time to grow those things. They just don't grow overnight.
They don't just grow overnight.
Yeah.
There are definitely alternatives out there. Don't be afraid to have to do some of these frozen or canned things, because definitely during the winter things will change. But make sure that you're just being in variety. Make it easy on yourself. Again, if you are causing yourself more stress by trying to eat a certain way, by trying to find the perfect solution, you're putting more stress on you than you're going to benefit than by eating whatever it is that you thought you should have been eating in the first place.
Just in my event on Sunday, as you know, this event that I competed in, on my way home, the buddies I went with, like, hey, we're starving. I'm like, yeah, I am too. Guess where we went? Condado Taco. Did I polish off 2 or 3 tacos? Absolutely, I did. Did I have a little bit of guacamole too and the chips? But I also took my enzymes, but I also know I probably burned over 1,000 calories or better during the day. But I definitely didn't travel without my enzymes.
Just some kind of little prep things. So prepping is great. You know, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's just that simple. So you're going to have to put a little time and effort into eating in a different way, in the right way. But that is going to be give you so much more energy to do it the right way. You'll think this was so easy by taking 90 minutes just to prepping. So these are some of the kind of keys. Well, hey, we will let everyone go. Good to see everybody.
And if you see my door open, don't hesitate to pop your head in.
Please pop in when Brian's here and say hi.